Welcome back. With a renewed focus on the Russia probe, the disastrous trip to Paris and that slow-moving blue wave added up to a pretty rough week at the White House. Joining us for more on a possible Donald Trump cabinet shuffle is Tim Naftali, CNN presidential historian and former director of the Nixon Presidential Library. Good to have you with us.
Nice to be with you, Linda.
I want to start first with some of the fallout from the midterms. The fact that the Democrats now control the House and a decision is being made about who should be Speaker of the House. And obviously Nancy Pelosi wants to put her hand up for it. And if she doesn't get the votes, President Trump says he might help. Let's just take a listen to what he said earlier today before he boarded that flight to California.
I would help Nancy Pelosi if she needs some votes. She may need some votes. I will perform a wonderful service for her. I like her. Can you believe it? I like Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she's tough and she's smart, but she deserves to be Speaker. And now they're playing games with her.
So President Trump saying he'll support Nancy Pelosi. Why?
Making mischief. Maybe it's because the president thinks that she's a good foil. It's hard to understand why he would participate in the Democrat choice. I will say this, though. His predecessors didn't do that sort of thing. His predecessors did not tell the Democratic Party whom to choose for Speaker of the House when they had that opportunity.
Yeah, it certainly is quite odd. Let's look at this so-called invasion. In the lead-up to the midterms, President Trump spoke about this being a national emergency, these migrants coming towards the U.S. border. And he, of course, has deployed the military. And this morning, again, at that briefing just before he boarded that plane, he said they're going to stay there as long as is necessary. And so you've got thousands of troops deployed for, you know, a handful of migrants that are slowly trickling in. What do you make of that?
Well, if you want to understand why President Macron of France was talking about the need for Europeans to think about their own security, it's this whole story. The President of the United States, during a midterm election, used the United States Army, the United States military, for a political stunt. People who do military affairs, I study them, I don't do them, will tell you that the military that the United States has put at the border cannot use its guns. It can't shoot inside the United States. That's a violation of U.S. law. And it can't shoot outside because that would be a war with Mexico. So in fact, all those military officers and all those enlisted men and women, those heroes, are being placed in a useless mission only to send a signal to the president's base. It is a misuse of his power as commander-in-chief. And I wouldn't be surprised if many countries around the world wonder, is the United States a superpower anymore? Is it a country that actually intends to secure anything, let alone its own borders? So this political stunt was actually one of the worst things that President Trump had done in his first 2 years.
And let's look at it going forward, because we now have his own intelligence department, the CIA, saying that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia ordered the killing of the Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi. And President Trump this morning said he hadn't been briefed by his CIA. He was only going to get the briefing on his way to California, and went on to call Saudi Arabia a spectacular ally. What are President Trump's options here when it comes to dealing with Saudi Arabia going forward?
Well, this is not the first time that an American president has placed a bet on a foreign leader in the Middle East, and that bet has proven to be bad. The United States bet a lot on the Shah of Iran. In fact, the Shah of Iran and Saudi Arabia were considered the two pillars of U.S. policy in the Middle East until the late 70s. So the real challenge now is, how does this president deal with the fact that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is no longer a useful ally in the Middle East? It appears at the moment that this president, President Trump, lacks the flexibility and the understanding of the region to basically reorient U.S. policy. He seems stuck in a policy that he laid out, or maybe it's his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who laid out at the beginning of his administration. Now, what is the U.S. policy in the region? It's to find allies to basically focus on Iran. The U.S. government is very close to Netanyahu in Israel, another ally who seems to be in trouble, and placed a big bet, a huge bet on the Crown Prince in Saudi Arabia. The U.S., historically, what the U.S. would do now is reorient its alliance structure a little to reflect the fact that one of its key leaders is in trouble. But we'll see. This president does not seem to have a strategic understanding of international affairs, and it's not clear whom he listens to in his inner circle.
Yeah, it certainly is not clear. Tim Naftali, good to have you. Naftali, excuse me. Good to have you with us. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lynda.
Well, still to come here on CNN Newsroom. What is fueling the tense, angry crowds in France? Nearly 250,000 people have created havoc on the highways. We're going to go live to Paris next.